The mailroom always smelled like dust and old paper, a place so quiet that even the humming lights seemed to whisper. Jamie liked it that way. At 17, he had learned that silence wasn't empty, it was safe. Every morning, he slipped into Ridgeview Tech through the alleyway beside the dumpsters, the side door clicking shut behind him like a secret handshake. No one saw him arrive. No one ever did. The boxes came in stacks, labeled and taped, and ignored by most. But Jamie handled them with care, reading each label as if it might tell a story. He knew who ordered what before they even remembered doing it. Harold Wynn's extra bold coffee pods, marketing's rainbow sticky notes, Micah's occasional pack of AA batteries. Everyone wanted things fast. Jamie took things slow. Quiet was his currency. By noon, he had already made his rounds. The executive floor was all glass and chrome, as cold as the sky outside. The receptionist didn't glance up when Jamie passed. In Harold's corner office, the CEO was shouting into a headset. Jamie set the package down without a sound. At 12:40, he crossed the street to June's Diner. The bell over the door gave a soft ding. Inside, warmth swirled with the smell of turkey melt and cinnamon. Mrs. Gerber leaned over the counter with a grin. "Pumpkin pie's still warm, kiddo. You want your usual corner?" Jamie nodded, slipping into the booth near the window. He didn't speak much, but he always left a tip folded like a tiny triangle under his plate. Mrs. Gerber said that was how she knew he was raised right. Across the street, the tech building loomed. It felt like another world. Here, in the diner, people laughed about old television shows and refilled each other's coffee. Jamie watched them, not with envy, but with quiet understanding. He belonged here in the background, not at the center of anything. That evening, back in their small two-bedroom home, Grandma June was clipping coupons by the kitchen window. She looked up when he came in and nodded toward the side table. "I found a new one," she said. "A Zenith. Need some love." Jamie smiled, pulling off his hoodie. The transistor radio sat beside a polishing cloth. Fixing old radios had been their thing since he was 10. She'd been a radio operator in the war, back when women in headsets kept secrets and ships afloat. Now, they tinkered in peace. "How was work?" she asked. Jamie just shrugged. June didn't press. She never did. After dinner, Jamie sat with the Zenith, turning the dial slowly, listening for static. It came, faint and stubborn. He adjusted the copper coil. Grandma hummed in the next room, a warbled old jazz tune from memory. The house felt like a soft folded blanket. Outside, the wind whispered through bare trees. The next morning, as he passed a jammed elevator panel, Jamie knelt and tapped a hidden reset button no one else seemed to know existed. The lights blinked back to life. No one saw. But upstairs, Micah looked down through the stairwell and muttered to himself, "Kid knows more than he lets on." The morning came wrapped in a damp chill. Fog pressed against the windows, and the pavement shimmered with the kind of November rain that never really fell, just lingered. Jamie zipped up his hoodie and slipped out the door before Grandma June woke. She'd left him a note, folded neatly and tucked into the side of his coat like always. Today's read, "Even silent stars shine." The words echoed faintly as he walked the familiar route. By the time he reached Ridgeview Tech, his shoes were soaked through. He shook off the water quietly at the side entrance and made his way inside. Another Tuesday. Another shift. The mailroom lights flickered once, then steadied. Jamie noticed it, but didn't react. He knew the rhythm of the building like breath. That flicker was new, subtle. Not enough to startle anyone, but enough to speak to someone who was always listening. Halfway down the corridor, a screen rebooted on its own. A hallway camera blinked red, then green, then off again. Jamie paused near the service elevator. The doors were slow, a second too slow. Upstairs, chaos bloomed fast. A buzz of confusion swept through the office as badges stopped working and monitors froze mid-report. The sleek confidence of Ridgeview Tech cracked like thin ice. Harold Wynn slammed his hand on the conference table. "Tell me what happened. Now." The IT lead stammered. No one knew. They threw out words like overload, glitch, and firmware. But no one mentioned the AI. It was supposed to be seamless, learning as it worked, updating quietly in the background. Micah rushed between cubicles, trying to make sense of what little information he had. No one listened to him either. He wasn't high enough on the food chain to be heard in a crisis. But he saw Jamie, standing by the service panel, eyes scanning the diagnostic readouts like they were pages from a favorite book. Jamie moved without a word, down a hall, past a locked server closet he had once helped restock with Ethernet cables. He ducked behind a panel most people didn't notice. His fingers hovered over the auxiliary console, a failsafe from an older system, now mostly forgotten. The screen blinked to life. Jamie tapped, isolated a corrupted node, traced the looped error to a line of code in the AI's learning module. 17 seconds. That's all it took. Somewhere above, a light flickered back on, then another, then all of them. Doors beeped open, elevators hummed, and the building exhaled like it had just remembered how to breathe. A cheer went up in the break room. Staff clapped, relieved. Someone joked about gremlins. Harold shook hands with the IT lead and told him to run diagnostics again. Micah didn't cheer. He just looked around, then toward the stairwell. Jamie was gone. Back in the mailroom, Jamie sat on a stool beside a stack of unopened packages. He reached into his pocket and unfolded June's note again, tracing the edges. Even silent stars shine. Somewhere above, someone asked, "Wait, who fixed it?" But no one had an answer. The fog lingered through Wednesday, thick as milk, slowing the world to a hush. Ridgeview Tech buzzed like nothing had happened. Meetings resumed, coffee brewed, and the executives returned to their routines with unsettling ease. But Micah couldn't let it go, not after what he saw. He sat at his cluttered desk, replaying the flicker of movement, the quiet kid near the panel, the rapid scan of his eyes. Jamie, no badge, no clearance, no access. Yet, somehow, he had known exactly where to look. Micah scribbled something into his notepad, circled it twice, then leaned back, chewing the end of his pen. Downstairs, Jamie was sorting packages, like always, but his fingers moved slower. His mind was replaying something, too. Not the fix, he didn't think about that. What echoed was the way the building had roared back to life, how no one had noticed him there. That was the point, wasn't it? To disappear. But then Micah had looked at him, really looked. By noon, Jamie took the long way out. He passed a hallway lined with photos of Ridgeview's rising stars. All adults, all press suits, and bright smiles. He paused at the end, near the exit. The last frame had a slight tilt, a loose screw in the corner. Jamie straightened it. Outside, the clouds hung low, brushing the tops of buildings. He crossed to June's diner. Mrs. Gerber was serving a table of regulars who were laughing about snow chains and old trucks. She glanced up and smiled. "You look like a man with a secret," she said, pouring coffee. Jamie gave her a look that was almost a smile. She poured him a cup anyway. In the booth, he sat with his back to the wall, his eyes on the door. Something in the rhythm of the place settled him. Then it shifted. Micah walked in. He hesitated at the threshold, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes scanned until they landed on Jamie. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across. "Mind if I talk?" Jamie tensed. No one ever asked him that. Micah pulled out a folded napkin and flattened it. On it, he drew a small sketch of the server panel. "You did something yesterday, didn't you? Something that saved the system. I saw you." Jamie looked at the drawing, then at Micah. He didn't nod. He didn't deny it either. "Look, I don't care about the rules," Micah continued. I think you're brilliant. And maybe you don't want attention, but you shouldn't be down in a mailroom." Jamie spoke for the first time that day. Maybe the building needed quiet to breathe again. Micah stared at him, not puzzled, moved. He left the napkin on the table. Scribbled on it was a name and a number. "If you ever want to do more than deliver boxes, call me." Jamie watched him leave. The napkin fluttered slightly in the breeze from the door. He didn't pick it up. Not yet. The napkin stayed on the diner table long after Micah left. Jamie hadn't touched it. He kept his eyes on the smudged window, watching people pass outside with scarves pulled high and collars turned up. Something about the number sitting there, so plain and casual, made his stomach tighten. It felt like a door had opened, but one he wasn't sure he wanted to walk through. By nightfall, the napkin was folded neatly into his pocket, alongside the usual note from June. That evening's message read, "Not all gifts are wrapped." He held both pieces of paper in his hand before slipping them into a worn shoebox under his cot. The next morning at Ridgeview, things felt different, quieter, but not in a peaceful way. Jamie sensed it the moment he stepped inside. The elevator lights glitched again. Just once, he noticed. No one else did. Upstairs, the system was humming too fast, like a song out of tune. Micah noticed it too. Harold Wynn had gathered the senior staff into a closed-door session. Rumors had begun to circle about vulnerabilities, about trust, about the AI. The fix from Tuesday hadn't held. The system was learning in ways it wasn't supposed to. Writing new logic, overwriting protocols. Harold's knuckles turned white around a mug of black coffee. Micah sat on the edge of the meeting, quietly absorbing every word. He could feel the tension crawling across the room. When the group broke, he made his way downstairs. Jamie was already in the hallway by the utility panel. He didn't look surprised. "It's looping," Jamie said quietly, not turning around. "The system learned the patch. It's rejecting it now." Micah nodded. "We need to get ahead of it, but I can't get access without raising flags." Jamie turned, eyes steady. "There's another way in, but you'll have to cover the cams for 7 minutes." Micah hesitated, then nodded. At 6:47 p.m., the main floor cameras blinked out for exactly 7 minutes. No one questioned it. Security assumed routine maintenance. Upstairs, Harold was pacing, trying to reach the development contractor. Jamie moved fast, past the badge-locked rooms, through a narrow side hall, to a junction where the old servers met the new AI core. He bypassed a sensor using a magnet hidden in his sleeve. The screen flashed red, then green. Inside, he found the code structure had rewritten itself, like a living thing, pulsing, reactive, defending itself. He didn't try to delete it. He made something new. A nested logic trap, mimicking the AI's own learning style, seeded with redundancies and self-checks. Not to break it, just to calm it, contain it, like talking softly to a wild animal. His fingers danced across the keys. One wrong line and it would fight back. Outside the door, Micah stood with his back against the wall, listening for footsteps. None came. At 6:54, the lights flickered. A slow pulse, like a heartbeat returning to rest. Jamie stepped out, eyes calm but distant. "You didn't just patch it," Micah said. Jamie shook his head. "I taught it how to stop being afraid." Micah didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. Back at the security panel, the cameras clicked back on. No one noticed a thing. The next morning came without fanfare. A few snowflakes drifted lazily down as Jamie crossed the street toward Ridgeview. He moved like usual, hood up, head low, but something had shifted inside him. The night before hadn't changed his routine, but it had stirred something beneath it. In the mailroom, he sorted packages with practiced quiet. No one looked twice. It was better that way. But now, a strange new awareness clung to him, like static. He touched the heart of something massive and left no fingerprint. The AI had calmed. Systems were stable. Everyone upstairs had resumed their routines. Everyone except Harold Wynn. Harold had slept poorly. His instincts buzzed with a tension he couldn't place. Somewhere, somehow, a breach had occurred. But there were no logs, no camera gaps, no signatures in the code. Only results. The AI was stable, more responsive, and yet not theirs, not entirely. It felt like something had changed its nature overnight, without permission. He summoned Micah. "Who had access Tuesday evening?" Harold asked, voice clipped. Micah handed over a report, dozens of names, all accounted for. Jamie's wasn't on it. "You sure that's everyone?" Harold asked, eyes narrowing. Micah hesitated. "Far as the system shows." The tension in Harold's jaw deepened. "I want eyes on everything, everything." Back in the mailroom, Jamie felt the ripple. Security walked past more than usual. Cameras shifted. The building was watching again. That evening, June poured him an extra cup of coffee without asking. Jamie usually left right after his shift, but tonight He lingered in the booth by the window. June slid into the seat across from him. "You okay, kid?" Jamie shrugged. "Just thinking. Dangerous habit," she said, smiling gently. "But it suits you." He nodded toward the old jukebox. "Why do you keep that?" "No one uses it." She looked over. "Because some things deserve to stay, even if they don't get noticed. Doesn't mean they're not doing something." Jamie didn't say anything. But that night, he pulled out the napkin again. The ink had begun to fade. He smoothed it flat on the cot beside him and stared. Across town, Harold was pulling up employee rosters, one by one. "Who the hell is Jamie Rowe?" he muttered. The cursor blinked beside Jamie's name. Employee status. Mailroom intern. Assigned access. Basic. Project involvement. None. No performance reviews. No commendations. No flags. Harold frowned. The profile felt like a ghost. And ghosts, in his experience, had secrets. He picked up the phone. "Get me building records. Security tapes. I want to know where this kid's been." In the still of Jamie's room, the cot creaked as he leaned back and whispered quietly, to no one in particular. "They're starting to see." The wind picked up outside, rattling the old window frame. Something had begun. On Friday morning, Harold stood by the east window of the Ridgeview Tower, watching the clouds roll in over a sunless sky. A manila folder sat on his desk behind him. It contained a full report, Jamie Rowe's entry and exit logs, all clean. Camera footage? Unremarkable. No proof. But Harold wasn't convinced by absence. He trusted instinct more than evidence. Micah entered the office quietly. "No anomalies," he said. "No signatures. Whatever he did, if it was him, it's buried deep. I can't even tell if it helped or rewrote everything." Harold finally turned. "And yet, everything's working better than before. Isn't that right?" Micah nodded slowly. "That scares me more than the failure did," Harold said. Later that afternoon, Jamie stood by the lobby exit, holding a small cardboard box. His internship had ended quietly, without a goodbye. There was no ceremony, no thank you, just a formality. He was told he'd done well, but they were moving in another direction. June waited for him outside, bundled in a burgundy scarf. She didn't ask what happened. "You hungry?" she asked. Jamie nodded. At the diner, they sat in their usual booth. Jamie placed the box beside him. It held only two things: the napkin, now folded with care, and a blank ID card with no logo, no name. June poured him coffee and slid a slice of pumpkin pie across the table. "They don't know what they had," she said softly. Jamie looked out the window. The town was quiet. Snow had begun to fall. Slow and thoughtful. "Maybe it's better that way," he said. "Some things don't need to be noticed to matter." She smiled, not replying. That evening, in another part of town, Harold opened a sealed envelope marked confidential. Inside was a printed page with a single sentence in crisp black ink. "Sometimes the quietest hands leave the deepest marks." There was no name, no address, just a timestamp, the exact minute the AI stabilized. He stared at it for a long time. Back at the diner, the jukebox hummed to life, seemingly on its own. A warm old tune drifted through the quiet space. Jamie closed his eyes and let it play. Winter had arrived, and with it, the quiet kind of change, the kind you don't see until much later, when you realize the whole world had already begun to shift.